process of elimination is a dark, story-driven game where you, as an inexperienced detective, must earn the reputation of your colleagues by solving a variety of murder mysteries. This game has been available in Japan since 2021, but now the game is launching globally. The price is initially set to $40 in Nintendo's eShop, but as usual, when it comes to games that are sold by NIS America, you can also buy the game physically. In this video I discuss basic aspects of the game and whether it is worth buying. This is a story-driven detective game that contains extensive monologues and dialogues. We get to follow a group of detectives whose mission is to solve the mystery of a certain murderer named the Quartering Duke. Of all the detectives you meet in the game, there is one who acts as the game's protagonist and who is also the one you portray. His name is Wato Hojo. At the beginning of the game, he is quite inexperienced and has little knowledge of the detective profession, but since he is now part of the group of people who have to solve a problem surrounding the Quartering Duke, he has to win their trust by showing that he is capable. I think the developers have succeeded well in creating a clear arc around the main character. You get to experience how our hero grows into the role of detective and gradually convinces his colleagues that he has the skills needed to solve different murder cases. What is worth noting about the story, and which contributes to an underlying tension, is that within the group of detectives there are those with evil intentions. We get to see how certain people within the group execute other detectives. These people often want to present the murders as accidents and make it clear that they are completely innocent. So it's your job as a detective to bring these people to justice, searching for clues, ruling out the innocent and prosecuting those you believe to be guilty. You soon find that the pool of detectives is getting smaller and smaller. Overall, this is a relatively dark story, but it also contains a lot of dialogue where we get to know each detective in depth. These conversations are usually quite de-dramatizing and can sometimes be a bit playful and light-hearted. As a whole, the narrative spans a wide range of different expressions. Mostly the story is dark, but occasionally light-hearted. Let's discuss the shape of the game. It took me about 25 hours to get through this adventure, and even though it is a story-driven game, it contains elements of gameplay. In the dialogues, you sometimes have to choose between different options, and usually they are connected to an ongoing murder investigation. Then there is the actual search for clues. Here, the detectives are moved around in a closed area, but more on that later. In order to nuance how the game is designed purely in terms of time, I would like to show a timeline. First, you interact with other detectives in the group. This is a long phase of drawn-out dialogues. It takes about 2 hours. Then a murder occurs. Now it often becomes more dramatic, and these sequences take approximately half an hour. Then you have to look for clues. I wrote 30 minutes, but depending on how good you are at completing these tasks, the time can vary from 10 minutes to several hours. Then you have to try to solve the crime and find the culprit. It takes about 30 minutes. Everything ends with an afterplay where you reflect on what happened, about 30 minutes. This process is repeated a number of times. However, I would like to point out that sometimes the game goes in other directions. It could be less dialogue and more gameplay, but this timeline indicates how the game is designed in general and shows what you can expect once you start playing. Now we come to the point where we discuss the actual search for clues. You control a number of detectives in an isometric field. The aim is to find all the clues before the time runs out. By time, I mean that you have 9 turns. If you don't find all the clues before all the turns are over, it's game over. So you have to be strategic in how you move your detectives around the room. Each detective has 2 moves each turn, one for movement and one for an action. But I would also like to add that there is a special move where you can move characters across the whole playing field. A detective can inspect clues, analyze clues, and assist others in finding important clues. I have to say that this part of the game is a nice break and serves as an excellent complement to the dialogues that usually permeate the game. It's actually a pretty clever way to solve a crime. Instead of just choosing between different options in dialogues, here you actually get the opportunity to investigate and draw your own conclusions based on the clues you find. And since it always ends with trying to identify the culprit, you're forced to think and be observant of what happened before. For one thing, you may have to draw conclusions based on the clues you have found, but you may also need to be observant of what people once said and did in the dialogues themselves. Therefore, it can be good to create many save files if you need to go back and remember what happened before, and I think it's possible to create 40 to 50 different save files. Process of Elimination is a game that offers the player the opportunity to immerse himself in various murders with the goal of trying to solve them. However, you should be aware that this is definitely a dialogue-heavy game, and it may be important to follow along in all events. The game loses its purpose if you choose to fast forward all the dialogue. After all, it's the interactions between the detectives and all the drama between them that creates the game's main tension. However, what I would have liked to see more of is the gameplay itself. Running around different rooms looking for clues is definitely one of the game's assets, and it would have been fun if you had the opportunity to do it a little more often. Now, there is a tendency that it sometimes feels a little drawn out, that the dialogues become a little too long at times. The dialogues are certainly well written and basically leave nothing out, but I can perceive a balance between the dialogues and the gameplay as somewhat unbalanced. But I also want to point out that this game offers an interesting take for all those who appreciate murder mysteries, and the opportunity to be able to investigate, draw conclusions, and figure out who the culprit is. I wouldn't say that it's a game that suits everyone. It's quite slow paced, and also you should probably like that it's a story-driven game, but at the same time you get value for your money. It's a well-crafted detective game. Feel free to subscribe to my channel. I review new games every week. Have a good day. See ya!